All right, today we're going to deconstruct a really vicious financial heist. It's one that targets your deepest fears about the future. We're going inside what's known as the Bullion Bait System, an operation that's specifically designed to drain retirement savings by weaponizing the very idea of security.
You've probably heard it, right? It starts with that trusted voice, maybe on the radio or a late-night TV ad. The message is always calm, but it's urgent. It paints this picture of an impending collapse where, paper money is about to turn to dust, and then they offer you the only lifeboat, gold. So you call the number, and a specialist tells you all about these rare government-proof coins. You're not just buying metal, you see. You're buying survival.
And here's the real paradox, the twisted part of this whole thing. Your survival instinct, that drive you have to protect your family, it's not your shield. It's the target. So how do these predators turn your fundamental need for safety into the master key that unlocks your life savings? So in this explainer, we're going to cover 6 key areas. First, how security itself is the target. Then we'll look at the economic panic trap they set. We're going to dissect the anatomy of the heist, see how they literally hijack your brain, show you how to build your defense, and finally, reframe gold as what it is, a weight, not a miracle.
Okay, Section 1. Security is the target. Let's dive into how the very foundation of this scam is built on your fear.
Next up, Section 2, the economic panic trap. You'll see, this scam doesn't just happen in a vacuum. It thrives in a very specific environment, by exploiting our biological response to anxiety.
And scammers are absolute masters at fueling this anxiety. They use a tactic called economic doom looping. What that is a constant, non-stop barrage of negative headlines and crisis narratives, all designed to convince you the system is collapsing. This manufactured panic is what pushes you to make decisions based on pure emotion, not on any kind of market reality.
And what's the immediate result of that panic? Well, you become vulnerable. Victims are often coerced, and I mean really pressured, into paying markups of 200% or even more for these so-called collectible coins. Now, this isn't a fee. This is what we call capital erosion. The second that transaction is complete, a massive chunk of your investment is just gone.
The financial loss is catastrophic, often wiping out entire retirement accounts. But the psychological damage is just as profound. The moment you realize that the very thing you trusted to be your safety anchor was actually the weight designed to sink you, well, it creates a deep, deep trauma. Victims report feeling like they can never trust their own judgment, their own eyes ever again.
All right, Section 3, anatomy of the heist. Let's get clinical now. Let's break down their extraction protocol phase by phase.
The Bullion Bait System, it unfolds in 4 very distinct phases. It starts with fear anchoring, then it moves to the rare coin hook, then the premium and storage phase, and it ends with the extraction exit. The scammer is literally banking on your survival instinct to just carry you through each of these steps without asking any questions.
Phase 1 is fear anchoring. So the scammer, they don't open with a sales pitch. Oh no, they start with a global crisis. They use what are called high visual shock tactics, just flashing headlines about bank failures, hyperinflation, a dying dollar. The goal here isn't to get you to understand the market. The goal is to trigger a physiological response, a panic spike. That's the moment you stop thinking about diversification and start thinking about pure survival. Then comes phase 2, the rare coin hook. Once you're primed by that fear, you're discouraged from buying standard bullion. You'll hear things like, anyone can buy a bar, you want the rare ones that the government can't seize. This has nothing to do with market logic, it's all mystification. They're creating a story of scarcity to get you to emotionally trade your hard-earned money for their narrative.
In Phase 3, premium and storage, the dealer sets you up with a partnered custodian who then performs fake audits. So you'll get these statements showing your rare coins are appreciating. But this chart here reveals the truth. The price you paid was inflated by 200%, and that markup instantly stripped away over half your wealth. And that's a fact that's completely hidden by these fictional, stated values.
And finally, we get to Phase 4, the extraction exit. When you eventually try to cash out, the trap springs. The scammer suddenly becomes impossible to reach. They'll tell you about market illiquidity or that they're finding a buyer. They'll ask you to wait for a buyback to process. And while you're waiting, they're closing up shop, deactivating the phone line, and moving on to the next LLC, leaving you with a bag of metal that's worth a fraction of what you paid for it.
Okay, Section 4, hijacking your brain. So we've seen what they do, now let's explore why this works so effectively by looking at how they hack our own cognitive defenses.
At the heart of it is this incredibly powerful cognitive bias, tangibility bias. See, our brains evolved over millennia to prioritize things we can physically touch and hold. A heavy gold coin feels instinctively more real and more valuable than a number on a screen. It's a survival trait from our prehistoric past that is now being weaponized in these modern financial heists.
The most crucial point to understand is that the entire interaction is engineered to keep your brain locked in its emotional, instinctive state, what you might call System 1. They use patriotic pacing and rhetoric that mirrors a trusted authority, and this prevents your logical, analytical brain, your System 2, from ever engaging. By the time you might start to question a 200% markup, your emotional brain has already approved the wire transfer.
Ultimately, the scammer isn't hacking the gold market. They're hacking your protective drive. They leverage your terror of losing your legacy, of failing to provide for your family, as the ultimate tool. They literally turn your own prudence, your desire to be a responsible person, into the very weapon that destroys your security.
Okay, Section 5, Building Your Defense. Let's move from the threat to protection. Here's a strategic toolkit to counter this kind of psychological attack. First up is the Spot Price Shield. You should never, ever pay more than 5 to 10% over the current market spot price for standard bullion. You can find this price online from reliable sources like the London Bullion Market Association, or LBMA. Any premium higher than this is a scam. Full stop.
Second is the independence rule. And listen, this is non-negotiable. If you're setting up a precious metals IRA, you must use a custodian and a storage depository that are completely independent from the dealer who sells you the metal. Never use a service that is owned by, partnered with, or even just recommended by the dealer. This separation creates a critical firewall that breaks the scammer's control over your assets.
And finally, here is a literal script you can use. Memorize it. We're calling it the commodity exit script. A legitimate dealer who makes their money on volume and small markups will respect this. A scammer's business model depends entirely on that huge markup from rare numismatic coins. When you say this, you've taken away their only weapon, and their reaction will tell you everything you need to know. They'll pivot to anger or shaming or more fear-mongering, and that's your signal to hang up the phone.
Okay, Section 6, Wait, Not a Miracle. This brings us to the core lesson of this entire explainer.
This is the dividing line. A scammer sells you a story of collapse, of secret knowledge, of salvation. A legitimate dealer sells you a metal, a commodity that's priced by weight on a global market. They don't sell secrets or miracles.
This single idea to hold on to is this: gold is a wait, not a miracle. It can be a part of a diversified portfolio, for sure, but it is not a magical solution to economic anxiety. The moment someone starts selling you a story instead of a price per ounce, you know you're talking to a predator. And now, you know exactly how to walk away.